We got an interesting reaction video for you guys today. It's why Europe doesn't build skyscrapers.
This will be interesting to learn about because it's something that you can kind of notice, especially with some of the videos we react to showcasing these beautiful European cities, the capital cities of some countries. There's maybe one tall building. That's it.
Yeah, and usually like the ones with the tall buildings are like the tech hubs
Hmm.
or something like that of the country. It's that's kind of the thing. Like we've been living and traveling around Asia for the last like 3 years, and you get kind of sick of skyscrapers once you see them in every single city. You're just like, oh, skyscraper, because they all kind of look the same.
Yeah, there's very little variation.
That's one thing about European cities is like they're so much more historic and they have the unique architecture. It's not just skyscraper after skyscraper. I love that. It
There's
makes the cities much more enjoyable to go to.
there's some soul in the architecture.
Yeah, but let's jump into why that never happened. Skyscrapers in Europe.
Why aren't there many skyscrapers in Europe? Despite being one of the most developed, densely populated, and economically prosperous continents, Europe has surprisingly few skyscrapers.
Yeah, I mean, Florence is a crazy city right there where the tallest building, well, not the tallest building, maybe that one's
Which
getting
one's
a little
taller, this tower or that church?
It's hard to tell the perspective, but it makes the center point of the church so much more prominent, and it's so beautiful.
I mean, when we were there, we walked through the streets, and the church would just sometimes be the view from the street. It was so cool.
Particularly when compared to Asia and North America.
Yeah,
Few
look at
skyscrapers.
Asia.
Particularly when compared to
Being
Asia
Hong
and North
Kong,
That's so wow. They really flashed that quick. And then LA,
America.
much uglier cities.
I mean, you got LA
Particularly
with
when compared to Asia and North America.
the dang massive 20-lane highway and skyscrapers. That's a city.
Of the 218 skyscrapers constructed on the continent to date, 66% of them are located in just 5 cities.
Wow.
London, Paris, Frankfurt, Moscow, and Istanbul.
Interesting.
So why have other major European cities not embraced the skyscraper? How do they thrive without the significant inner urban space and floor areas that these clever structures provide?
Why South America doesn't build skyscrapers is a recommended one. Interesting. I never thought about that.
No.
Is everything about to change in our increasingly urbanized world?
Very dramatic intro for this.
Yeah.
Why?
When skyscrapers first rose to prominence in the 19th century, first in Chicago and later in New York, many European cities were already firmly established, with grand historic buildings and public spaces that left little room for large new structures. Most of Europe's cities around that time were also more evenly zoned, and were not facing the high demand for floor space in key districts that typically drives high-rise development.
Piccadilly.
Oh.
It's so interesting to see these old pictures of these cities. It's always so interesting. Those videos of like the 1900s in like London or New York, and it's just like a video that they colorize. Those are so interesting.
It's so cool to see.
Additionally, as the power and influence of North America began to grow, a cultural rivalry emerged between Americans who saw Europe's class system as outdated and Europeans who saw some American ideals as eroding traditions and the European way of life. As a result, each continent became wary of adopting the other's concepts. While North America aims to become the model for a new age, Europe sought to preserve its heritage. While this explains why skyscraper construction didn't initially catch on in Europe, it doesn't explain what has held the continent back since. In the wake of the Second World War, many thought European cities would modernize and replicate the skyscrapers that were rising across North America.
Yeah, that's true. Surprising they didn't.
However, in Western Europe, where many cities lost landmark and historic structures, an overwhelming desire to restore what had been destroyed took hold.
Very cool.
In
to do
addition,
that.
the lower population of Europe at that time meant that the demand for floor area that principally drives skyscraper construction wasn't there. As a result, modest structures replaced buildings that could not be saved or restored. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, the expanding Soviet Union's rebuild
The
efforts
Soviet
consisted
block
largely
apartment buildings.
They're so crazy. Just great. The saturation's just like turned down.
We basically lived in one of these for 3 months. It's a very, very interesting vibe.
The outsides are never the nicest, but the insides can be like of the units are pretty decent sometimes.
Yeah, decent size and
of
stuff.
mid-rise repetitive structures that sought to rehouse much of the population. It was during this time that Europe saw its first skyscrapers begin to rise.
Whoa.
Not in
This is a
response
really
to
cool
growth
shot
and
of Moscow. I've
prosperity,
never
saw its
seen that
first
shot before.
skyscrapers
Yeah,
begin
cool.
to rise. Not in response to growth and prosperity, but in an effort by the Soviets to indicate their power and influence.
Brusselsization.
While Brussels has never constructed a true skyscraper, it is partly responsible for the lack of skyscrapers across the continent. Without any significant zoning regulations in place, the 1960s saw many buildings in the city demolished to make way for large, modern structures that had little regard for architectural or cultural value. Recognizing the damage this indiscriminate redevelopment was doing to the city, many prominent figures and architects coined the term Brusselization and lobbied to introduce new planning laws. These regulations significantly limited the scale of new buildings and required historic facades to be restored and incorporated into new developments.
Crazy that people were able to do that in Europe. If someone tried to go to the US and was like, hey, that huge bank's building doesn't have some good architecture and history to it, the bank would be like, I don't care. And, it's not like the people have any power over the huge corporations in the US to make their buildings look nicer.
The bank would start funneling money to politicians, and the
Yeah.
politicians would be like, banks need bigger buildings, guys.
They actually need a second building now.
Let's go. And they should be able to do whatever they want with the money you put in the bank.
Preserving the cultural fabric of the city. The row in Brussels led to a general dislike for modern buildings across Europe, with many seeing them as bland or soulless. In response,
I mean,
with
talking
many
about
seeing
soulless, that looks like every business district in Asia right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
It literally does.
bland or soulless. In response, numerous cities adopted similar regulations and set aside controlled districts, like Paris's La Défense, to keep high-rise development away from historic centres.
The urban age.
By the start of the 21st century, attitudes around tall buildings were softening across the continent, as architectural trends moved away from box-like structures towards more unique designs, and as the world became increasingly globalized.
That's an interesting building.
Since the early 2000s, major financial centres like London, Paris, Moscow, Istanbul and Frankfurt have seen several skyscrapers rise, as demand for commercial space in their centres has increased. By contrast, smaller European cities that have been experiencing more modest growth have turned their focus to the environment and improving living standards.
Whoa, I don't
for
remember seeing
citizens.
those in Milan.
I don't either. That's pretty cool.
We saw the downtown from pretty far away,
Yeah.
and then we somehow walked there in the middle of the night.
The like businessy district
Yeah.
area, the few skyscrapers there were.
I don't remember the Singaporean looking buildings.
In recent years, urban areas in Scandinavia and Central Europe have consistently ranked among the highest in the world for sustainability, happiness and well-being, while maintaining importance within their national economies. However, skyscraper construction in the cities of today
Lisbon.
is no longer driven purely by economic growth or the need for commercial office space. With 60% of the global human population set to be living in urban areas by 2030, residential skyscrapers are now rising in prominence, particularly across Asia and North America. As many
I feel like
tradi-
in America, you don't see skyscrapers being built very often.
No, they're just kind of like there in the downtowns.
In Asia, I mean, they're being built. Every city we go to, there's multiple skyscrapers being built at all times.
Even in like the suburbs of those cities, like that, they're putting a lot of districts outside of those cities.
I can't like think of the last time there was like a big skyscraper built other than like the World Trade Center one
They were
in
trying
the
to build
US.
like the super tall building in Oklahoma City, I think, was to be one of the
Why?
tallest ones, but I don't think it got enough funding.
It would get knocked over by a tornado
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. Can buildings get knocked over by tornadoes? What would happen if like a tornado just ripped through a city?
I feel like that happened in Houston or something, and it like destroyed all the windows on it, but I think it still stood. I don't know how strong the tornado was.
Oh, weird.
Rural-based industries become automated, millions are migrating into cities and major
What the
urban areas,
clouds.
driving significant demand for residential space that is often met with high-rise structures. Europe is not immune to this phenomenon, particularly in such a heavily globalized world, and with the continent's desire to keep up with the progress and economic growth of China and the US. As such, Europe could witness a skyscraper boom in the decades ahead.
Oh man.
However, with entire urban centres now being declared historically significant, and with the desire to retain
pretty
as much
crazy.
culture and architecture as possible rightly holding strong up to the present day, the unique challenge facing future skyscraper construction in Europe is all to do with the past.
Like, where do they build a skyscraper there in
They-
Barcelona?
yeah.
Where's it going to go? They have to build it somewhere outside of the city.
Yeah.
Future skyscraper
Just one
construction
right
in
here.
Europe is all to do with the past. If you enjoyed this video and
Very interesting.
It does seem like Europe is kind of going the right direction with the way they build the skyscrapers, where it's kind of like in a separate district, separate from the historical center. And then some of the skyscrapers we saw there had some unique designs
Yeah.
to them. London's got some unique ones, and
Some of them were shaped like air conditioners or something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah, some like weird blocky boys.
Like a router or something.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. It's good that they're keeping the historic areas of the city. I mean, like he said, entire downtowns of major cities are just considered historic districts, which is insane.
You gotta keep it that way. The history
Gotta.
needs to be preserved.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.